Hello. In this video, we are going to go back and review when we should use the NPAT formula. So when we are going to use the NPAT formula is when we know it's exponential. And so it is not linear. And we know already that when it's exponential, we're going to see a couple of key things. We're going to see a concave up graph. We're going to, in words, see constant percent change. And we're going to, let me put parentheses, words there. And we're going to see a constant y2 over y1 ratio. In data. Now, if I know that it's exponential, so somebody has told me, I see the concave up graph, I see the percent, I see the ratio, this NPAT formula is going to work best when we know the y2 over y1 ratio. So when should I use this? When I know So looking at the notes that I've written off to the right-hand side, this is really going to be when I have data that I should use NPAT. When I have a word problem, I am also going to want to get to the NPAT formula because the NPAT formula is really like the y equals mx plus b. It's the standard for exponential. But when I have words, I'm going to have to do a little bit of work to get there, just like in linear, sometimes I have to do a little work to find slope, or I have to do a little work to find the b value, and so I still want to end up with NPAT, but sometimes I have to do some work to get there. So the second question here is, what do the letters in NPAT represent? So N is the number of items. It is also the y variable. So even though we don't use the letter y, in our calculators that do use x and y, it is the y variable. Moving across the formula, then P is the starting amount. A is called the growth or decay factor. Should be an O there in the middle, growth or decay factor. And it is the y2 divided by y1 ratio. And then the T is the time. And in our calculators, this is going to be the x variable. And then we're asked, what about the y equals P1 plus R to the T formula? And so this is an expanded version of NPAT. We see the P's matching up. We see the T's matching up. And we see that the y variable is used instead of n, but everything else matches up. So in this formula, this 1 plus r calculates the a in the NPAT. And so it is a different way to get to the NPAT formula. So when should I use this? I should use it when a percent is given. So I'm going to use NPAT when I know that ratio, but when a percent's given, I'm going to use this idea of 1 plus that percent or 1 minus that percent is going to get me the A. And some key things. R is the percent as a decimal. And it can be positive or negative, depending if the item is growing or decaying by a certain percentage. And doing the math in the parentheses gives us A. So right here, do the math to get A. All right, well, let's put all of this into action. So we're going to look at an example. And our directions are that we're either to write an NPAT formula or we're to write a y equals mx plus b formula. So the first example, it says you took a job in healthcare with a starting salary of $42,000 per year. Each year since, you have been given a 2% cost of living raise. Write an equation for your current salary. So the thing I notice is that there is a percent here. And so that immediately tells me that I should use exponential. So my formula that I'm memorizing for exponential is the NPAT formula, and I'm going to fill in the values. So I will write N equals, so the number of dollars that I'm going to get, that's the amount, is a starting salary of $42,000, filling that in for the p-value. In order to get A, I have a percentage. And so from the previous slide, I'm going to use the idea of 1 plus R. So 1 plus, I'm using plus because it is an increase. And so I put the percent as a decimal, 0.02 to the t power. And then I do have to do the math in that parenthesis to get the actual A value. So this is N equals 42,000, 1.02 to the t power. And so that's my NPAT formula. Second example, you are planning your graduation party. You found that running a barn costs $2,000, plus you need to pay $18.25 per guest for catering. Write an equation for the total cost. So I'm reading this right here, this $18.25 per guest, this is my slope. And I know that slope is the constant rate of change, and I see that's a rate, so much per guest makes it a rate, and it's constant. It always is $18.25. So filling that into the y equals mx plus b, y equals 18.25 x, so I filled in the slope for the m, plus the starting amount I have to pay to rent the facility, in this case a barn party, so $2,000. All right, third one. Most people will eliminate 21.7% of a dose of azithromycin each day. The patient took 500 milligrams of azithromycin. Write an equation for the amount remaining in the body. So for me, I see that this is a percent. And so that makes this exponential. And so I'm going to write NPAT formula. So N equals, for P I put the starting 500 milligrams. It gave me a percent, so I'm going to use the idea of 1, in this case minus, and I'm using minus because of this word eliminate, and I have to change my percent to a decimal, so 0.217. to the t power. And then to get this in the correct answer format, I have to do the math in the parentheses. So n equals 500. Doing the math in the parentheses gives me 0.783 to the t power. And so the percentage ones fit into the NPAT formula. I am using the idea of 1 plus r within that NPAT formula, and then I do have to do the math in those parentheses to get the true value of A, the growth or decay factor.